Welcome and welcome back to Really Legal. I'm attorney Ethan Bearman. Well, Hunter Biden lost his motions to dismiss last week, and the right is losing their minds over what it means. I'll give you the good, the bad, and what's next. Hunter Biden was indicted last year for multiple tax-related charges and gun charges. Back in July of 2023, there were plea and diversion agreements in front of a Delaware federal court. However, United States District Judge Mary Ellen Noriega, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, please forgive me, Your Honor, she didn't believe that Hunter Biden, based on his attorney's statements, that he fully understood what he was agreeing to. Sent them back to be discussed further. And the long and the short of it is that the deal fell apart, and the United States Attorney General, Merrick Garland, ended up in August appointing United States Attorney David Weiss as special counsel to continue the investigation of Hunter Biden. And ultimately, the special counsel then convened a grand jury in the Central District of California on the tax charges leading to the current indictment that's happening here. So back in February, Hunter Biden's lawyers argued that the, quote, rabbit hole of lies allegedly told by indicted ex-FBI informant Alexander Smirnov infected the investigation into the president's son. And I quote from a motion filed back in February. The special counsel charged Mr. Smirnov with lying and obstruction. But the more interesting part of this story is not that Mr. Smirnov lied. It is more remarkable that beginning in July 2023, the special counsel's team would follow Mr. Smirnov down his rabbit hole of lies as long as it did. Wow, pretty aggressive. Remember hearing about Mr. Smirnov being arrested? I mean, if that's what your story's built on and the guy's being arrested for lying and obstruction, you might not be doing a very good job of making your argument. However, Hunter Biden then, he brought in last year a new attorney, really well-regarded, esteemed Abby Lowell, and his legal team here in Los Angeles filed motions to dismiss on numerous grounds. He filed 8 motions to dismiss the indictment. They're 1, motion to dismiss the indictment based on immunity conferred by defendant's diversion agreement. Motion to dismiss the indictment because special counsel Weiss was unlawfully appointed and the prosecution violates the appropriations clause. Number 3, motion to dismiss the indictment for selective and vindictive prosecution and breach of separation of powers. Number 4, motion to dismiss the indictment for due process violations based on outrageous government conduct. Number 5, motion to dismiss count 1 as untimely, or in the alternative to dismiss all counts for failure to state a claim and lack of specificity. Number 6, motion to dismiss counts 2, 4, and 6 of the indictment in part for duplicity. Number 7, motion to dismiss count 9 for selective prosecution, and motion to dismiss counts 1 through 4 for improper venue. Now, what you need to know here, though, kind of the big picture, is motions to dismiss happen all the time, but they're not often granted. I would suggest in some courts that it's rare that they're granted. I mean, it's basically saying, I'm going to go to the court and saying that this matter just fails on its face, right? There's not enough here to move forward. So in civil matters, it's a different standard than in criminal matters. But it's the same basic concept that there's just not enough here. It needs to be tossed out for these various reasons. On the criminal side, there can be constitutional reasons it needs to be tossed out, et cetera. And look, I don't need a trial. I don't need a jury. This doesn't have to go any further. So denying motions to dismiss is a common outcome. I'm unhappy, by the way. I just want you to know, when our side makes too big of a deal on a motion to dismiss not being granted when it's denied as well. It's too often in the media in particular, and when we're just being purely political about things, to make a big deal. You lost your motion to dismiss. It's just not that big of a deal. It's really not. It just means litigation proceeds. However, in this case, with Hunter Biden, Robert Hunter Biden is his full legal name, the right, they have nothing else. So they're always trying to tie Hunter Biden's legal woes to our president, his father. I have yet to see a single shred of evidence supporting a connection between Hunter Biden and these tax charges, the gun charges, even the business dealings yet, other than from apparently someone who is indicted for lying and obstructing the feds. That's, again, I'm not seeing legitimate evidence being put forth at all, which is part of the reason the impeachment is dying and should be properly 6 foot buried in the House of Representatives, by the way. But I just really want to get to something. I was reading the Wall Street Journal, which I do because I need to see all sides, not just my own. I actually had to laugh my head off. I laughed heartily when I read the Wall Street Journal and saw Kimberly A. Strassel's column making this ruling into a much bigger deal than it is. And I'm going to quote, "Those woes are serious. To read a federal judge's ruling this week slapping down all 8 of Hunter's motions to dismiss the criminal tax charges against him. The ruling received minimal coverage, even though it began a countdown to 2 potential Hunter trials, the other for firearm offenses." She is right there with that fact. It begins the countdown. As his father fights for re-election. Joe Biden's doing a great job. The economy shows it. It's just right-wing media that seems to be making people feel the other way about our president and what he has successfully accomplished. And I won't list all of that here. Go watch my political commentary on other networks for that. Those trials, continuing Kimberly Strassel's, those trials will provide a counterpoint to Mr. Trump's legal journey. Oh, that's just a journey. He's facing criminal charges in D.C., in Florida. He already lost 1 civil case in New York, and he's about to potentially, it looks like, lose another. So here's another quote from Strassel. "Mr. Trump's trials could turn into a liability if he lands a felony conviction, which some of his supporters tell pollsters would be disqualifying. Meantime, Hunter's indictments are cruising toward potentially messy ends come June." Hunter is not a member of government. Hunter doesn't serve in the White House, unlike Trump's children, right? Ivanka sure as heck did, and made how much money? And why did her husband get $2 billion from Saudi Arabia? I mean, this is just outrageous politicization of what's happening here. You know, and I just have to say, I've always said, and I even said this on Fox News at one point, if Hunter Biden committed crimes, he should be held to account. Everybody should be held to account for committing crimes. And if he did, then let's have a trial and find out. But here's the quote from Kimberly Strassel that's the kicker. Quote, "Meantime, Hunter's indictments are cruising toward potentially messy ends come June, and with them a new GOP cudgel. Just one more reason Joe should have rethought that re-election bid." What a ridiculous connection to make. Absolutely ridiculous. Why he should have rethought that re-election bid? Because his son was facing tax and gun charges? What are you talking about? That there's no connection to the president in this. What does that have to do with this re-election? I mean, we're going to talk about Billy Beer and go back to the Carter era? All right. As I said, I'll give you the good, the bad, and what's next. The good is there's no evidence tying President Biden to his son, unlike Trump and his sons in New York. The bad is that this case proceeds and the right will continue to make false connections to attack President Biden. What's next? Hunter Biden faces a June 3rd trial on his gun charges in Delaware and a June 20th trial here in Los Angeles on the tax charges. That's what's next. Oh my gosh. Please do me the favor. If you enjoyed watching this, click that little like button down there. Subscribe to the channel. Give me your comments. I love reading those. You see that I respond. And look, give me a follow as well wherever you can. And I appreciate talking to you here on Really Legal on the Really American Network. I'm attorney Ethan Bearman.